The Oval Office was tense. The air crackled with anger. President Trump, with a stroke of his pen, unleashed chaos. A 25% tariff on all imported cars and trucks. The world gasped. This was no mere trade skirmish. This was economic war. Trump, citing national security concerns, argued that America was at risk. Foreign cars, he declared, were a threat. The American auto industry, he promised, would rise again. But at what cost? The global auto industry braced for impact. Trump's tariff bomb sent shockwaves through boardrooms and across factory floors. From Tokyo to Seoul, from Detroit to Stuttgart, the message was clear. The rules of the game had changed. Japan, a titan of the auto industry, reeled. The news hit like an earthquake. The country's economic engine, heavily reliant on car exports, sputtered. The Nikkei plunged, a sea of red engulfing the trading floor. The statistics were grim. The auto industry, a cornerstone of Japan's economy, contributes a significant 3% to its GDP. Over 5 million people, a staggering 8% of the workforce depend on it. The tariffs, a direct hit to Japan's economic heart, threatened livelihoods and national pride. The impact was immediate and devastating. Japanese automakers watched in horror as billions of dollars in market value evaporated. The very foundations of Japan's economic might seemed to tremble. Outrage swept Japan. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, his voice laced with anger and disbelief, denounced the tariffs. This was not just an attack on Japan's economy, he argued, but a betrayal of a vital alliance. Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi echoed the sentiment, warning of the dire consequences for the global economy. The tariffs, he stressed, would damage the US-Japan relationship, a cornerstone of global stability. From the gleaming skyscrapers of Tokyo to the bustling factories of Toyota and Honda, a collective sense of betrayal and anxiety took hold. The tariffs, many feared, would have a devastating ripple effect, impacting not just the auto sector, but the entire Japanese economy. Across the Sea of Japan, another economic powerhouse felt the sting. South Korea, a global leader in electronics and automobiles, was caught in the crossfire. The tariffs, an indiscriminate blow to the global auto industry, threatened to cripple its own. South Korea's auto industry, representing 14% of its exports, faced a bleak future. With half of its car exports destined for the US, the tariffs threatened to unravel years of economic progress. The impact, both economic and political, would be profound. The tariffs, a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy, highlighted the vulnerability of even the most robust industries to protectionist policies. The world watched, holding its breath as the trade war escalated. Section 5. Dark clouds gather, economic fallout on the horizon. The economic storm clouds gathered, casting a long shadow over the financial district. The once bustling streets now seemed eerily quiet, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Analysts, their voices laced with concern, predicted a bleak future. They pored over charts and data, trying to make sense of the impending crisis. The numbers, however, painted a grim picture. The tariffs, they warned, would have far-reaching consequences, impacting not just the auto industry, but the global economy as a whole. Factories would slow down, jobs would be lost, and the ripple effects would be felt worldwide. Consumer prices, already on the rise, were expected to soar. The cost of everyday goods would climb, putting additional strain on households already struggling to make ends meet. The tariffs, a tax on imported cars, would inevitably be passed on to consumers, further fueling inflation. Showrooms that once bustled with eager buyers now stood empty, the price tags on cars becoming symbols of unattainable dreams. The dream of owning a new car, once within reach for many Americans, seemed to slip further away. Families, hopeful and excited, now faced the harsh reality of rising costs and dwindling options. The stock market, a barometer of economic health, reacted with predictable panic. Traders, their faces etched with worry, watched as stock prices plummeted, their screens flashing red. The Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled, a reflection of the growing uncertainty and fear gripping the global economy. The once steady climb of the market now seemed like a distant memory. The tariffs, a gamble by the Trump administration, had created a climate of fear and instability. As news of the tariffs spread, the nation watched with bated breath, wondering what the future would hold. Section 6. Japanese automakers. facing a tsunami of losses. Japanese automakers, once symbols of innovation and efficiency, found themselves staring into the abyss. The industry, which had been a beacon of technological advancement and economic strength, was now grappling with unprecedented challenges. The once bustling factories filled with the hum of machinery and the energy of workers were eerily silent. The tariffs, a direct assault on their competitiveness, threatened to decimate their profits and market share. These economic barriers were not just numbers on a spreadsheet, they represented a significant threat to the very foundation of the Japanese auto industry. The financial markets reacted swiftly, with automotive stocks plummeting, reflecting the grim outlook. The impact on jobs, both in Japan and the United States, would be significant. Thousands of workers who had dedicated their lives to these companies now faced the grim reality of job insecurity. Conversations about layoffs and reduced hours became commonplace, casting a shadow over the workforce. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, giants of the global auto industry, announced billions of dollars in projected losses. These companies, which had been pillars of the global economy, were now issuing warnings about their financial health. The scale of the losses was staggering, with each company bracing for a future filled with uncertainty. Factories, once humming with activity, faced the prospect of closure. The silence in these massive facilities was deafening, a stark contrast to the vibrant production lines of the past. The potential shutdowns were not just a loss of business, but a blow to the communities that depended on these factories for their livelihood. The tariffs, a body blow to the Japanese auto industry, threatened to unravel decades of hard work and investment. The industry, built on innovation and resilience, was now at a crossroads. The potential sale of factories and assets was a grim reminder of the precarious situation. The human cost of the trade war was becoming increasingly clear. Families who had relied on stable incomes from these jobs were now facing an uncertain future. The anxiety and stress were palpable, as workers grappled with the reality of potential unemployment. Workers, their livelihoods shattered, faced an uncertain future. The ripple effects of the tariffs extended beyond the factory floors, impacting homes and communities. The sense of security that once came with these jobs was now replaced with fear and uncertainty. The tariffs, a political weapon wielded by the Trump administration, had real-world consequences for millions of people. The policy decisions made in the halls of power were felt deeply in the lives of ordinary workers. Protests and public outcry highlighted the growing discontent as the human cost of these economic policies became impossible to ignore. Section 7. Global Supply Chains, Broken Links in a World of Trade. The tariffs, a wrecking ball to the global trading system, disrupted intricate supply chains that had taken decades to build. These supply chains, once the backbone of international trade, were suddenly vulnerable. Companies that had meticulously planned their logistics found themselves scrambling to adapt. The ripple effects were felt across industries from electronics to textiles as the cost of doing business soared. Mexico, a key player in the North American auto industry, found itself on the front lines of the trade war. The country had become a hub for auto manufacturing, with parts crossing borders multiple times before a car was fully assembled. This intricate dance of components was thrown into disarray, causing delays and increasing costs. As the top vehicle exporter to the United States, Mexico's auto industry, deeply integrated with its northern neighbor, faced chaos. Factories that once operated like clockwork were now plagued with uncertainty. The seamless flow of parts and finished vehicles was interrupted, leading to production slowdowns and financial losses. Factories reliant on cross-border supply chains ground to a halt. Workers faced layoffs, and communities dependent on these industries felt the economic strain. The once bustling assembly lines fell silent, a stark reminder of the fragility of global trade. The tariffs, a threat to the free flow of goods and services, exposed the fragility of the globalized economy. Businesses that had thrived on international cooperation now faced barriers that seemed insurmountable. The economic landscape was shifting, and not for the better. The tariffs, a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy, highlighted the risks of protectionism. Nations that once worked together found themselves at odds, and the spirit of collaboration was replaced with suspicion and competition. The global economic network, once a symbol of progress, now seemed like a delicate web, easily torn apart. The world watched with a mixture of anger and apprehension as the trade war threatened to spiral out of control. news outlets covered the escalating tensions, and international trade negotiations became front-page news. The uncertainty weighed heavily on markets and consumers alike, as everyone braced for the potential fallout. Section 8. A glimmer of hope, the potential for negotiations. Amidst the economic carnage, a glimmer of hope emerged. Diplomatic channels, though strained, remained open. The possibility of negotiations, however slim, offered a ray of light in an increasingly dark world. The European Union, facing its own trade tensions with the United States, threatened retaliatory tariffs. The prospect of a global trade war, with its devastating consequences, gave even the most hawkish policymakers pause. The pressure on the Trump administration to reconsider its actions was mounting. The outcome of the negotiations remained uncertain. The stakes, however, were clear. The future of the global trading system and the livelihoods of millions of people hung in the balance. Section 9. An uncertain future. Public fears and speculation mount. In Japan and South Korea, public anxiety ran high. The tariffs, a source of national humiliation and economic uncertainty, dominated headlines and fueled public debate. The once unshakable belief in a bright economic future seemed to waver. Protests erupted in major cities as citizens voiced their anger and frustration. The tariffs, they argued, were a betrayal of the principles of free trade and a threat to their livelihoods. The political fallout from the trade war was only beginning to be felt. The future remained uncertain. Would the tariffs be lifted? Would negotiations succeed in averting a full-blown trade war? Or would the world spiral into a new era of protectionism with devastating consequences for all? Only time would tell.